Lee Ruff, how I got from point A to point B. Lee Ruff, how I got from point A to point B, but first, let's do his evaluation, or his evaluator to give us his objectives.
Good afternoon. Today, Mr. Ruff is speaking from the Communicator manual from Project 1, the speech, the icebreaker. His objectives are to begin speaking before an audience, to discover speaking skills you already have and skills that need some attention. Time is 4 to 6 minutes.
Thank you. Lee Ruff, how I got from point A to point B. How I got from point A to point B, Lee Ruff.
Thank you, Ms. Toastmaster, fellow Toastmasters, and Steve, thank you for coming today. When I was 14, I had a life-changing experience. I was born and raised in the Bay Area of California, and my dad took a job in Nevada. Nevada. I was aghast at where we were going to move to. However, I became an NIC. Does everybody know what an NIC is? That's Nevada Improved California.
Nice.
My dad took a job at a television station here that had just opened up, Channel 4. It was called KCRL then. He was the news anchor. He had a lot of experience in broadcasting. He was a broadcaster his whole life, and in the PR business also. I went to high school at Earl Worcester High School. It was brand new. It had only been open a year. And I took a lot of classes for college preparation. And when I got to be a senior, I had more than enough credits to graduate, and I had all these open spaces. And in those days, you didn't just walk off campus. You had to be on campus from 0 dark 30 to whatever time school ended. So I took a couple of electives. I took electronics, and then I took auto shop. I was amazed at how much I could learn in auto shop. When graduation came in June of '66, I had a job working for a tire company that also had a gas station with it. So I had a lot of experience. My counselor in high school had got me this job because her husband owned this place, and he was a retired city councilman from Reno. And he liked to help out young people. I saw my first diesel engine when I was at that job, and I said, boy, that looks exciting to work on. And I always had it in the back of my mind. Well, in the summer of '66, I got into a little trouble. My mom and dad had bought a brand new Mustang convertible. And I decided that I was Parnelli Jones or Mario Andretti. Reno police didn't think so. They hauled the car off to the impound lot and took me up to the county, or at the time, the jail in the downtown Reno PD. And my dad come, and it kind of reminded me of the song about the son, you're going to drive me to drinking if you don't stop driving that hot rod Lincoln. My dad said, you know, instead of college, son, maybe you need to grow up a little bit and learn some responsibilities. And I think that maybe the service would be a good thing for you to do. Well, my dad was kind of persuasive that way. So I went down and saw the local recruiters, and I talked to the Army guy. And the reason I liked the Army guy the best is the other services you had to spend 4 years. Army only had to spend 3. So I signed up to become a diesel mechanic. School. Well, from Oakland, they sent us to LA, to Houston, And the next stop was a place called Fort Polk, Louisiana. Fort Polk is known as Little Vietnam. Guess which war was going on at that time? And they sent me to North Fork, which they called Tigerland, where they had all this jungle stuff going on. Well, I pretty well learned that there's 3 ways to do things. There's the right way to do things, there's the wrong way to do things, and there's the Army way to do things. And when you learn how to do things the Army way, you get along great in the service. After I went through basic training there, they sent me to Fort Knox, Kentucky to learn how to be a diesel mechanic? No. Learn how to be an armor crewman. That means you know how to run a tank. After I went through that, on my 19th birthday, I was on an airplane going to Germany instead of Vietnam, where I expected to go. I expected to go to Vietnam, but I didn't. I got to join the 3rd Armored Division. We were in a little town called Gilhausen, which is up on the East German border. At that time, there was an East and West Germany, and the Cold War was going on. And across the border from us was the Russian 8th Guard. And they had us outnumbered like 10 to 1, 20 to 1. We were just supposed to hold on to Europe until they could get the reinforcements over there. I don't think it was going to work. But I gained rank quickly. I became a PFC, then a Spec 4, then a Spec 5, then I became a sergeant. And I learned a lot of things. How to be around people, how to get along with people, how to run people, how to be run by the Army. Remember that word. There's a 3rd way to do things, and if you do it the Army way. I also learned that if you're a good tanker and you qualify your tank well, like you have to qualify a rifle, that the colonel in charge of your battalion loves you, and you never do rotten duty ever again. When I got out of the Army, by the way, that was one of the happiest days of my life up until that point. I got out of the Army and I went on the GI Bill to the University of Nevada. And I was studying to be an accountant. Can you see me as an accountant? I learned that there are good professors and bad professors. The good professors were the ones that would have been out in the real world and did something. And the bad ones that stayed in the academic world their whole lives, and they didn't know anything about life. You've all seen that kind of people, right? I got married and had a family and decided that being an accountant wasn't me. I joined the operating engineers, became a diesel mechanic, and there's more to this story, and I will tell it to you later.
Please remember to take a moment and vote for the speaker who you thought best met the objectives. Michael Cords is also going to help us with our impromptu speaking, not just our prepared speeches, but part of the meeting is to practice on the fly. So with that, please help me welcome up Michael Cords, our Table Topics Master for the day.
Preparing for table topics, this is my first time, I wanted to come up with some interesting topics. So I did a bit of looking around on the internet, trying to think of ideas. I realized, hey, I don't need an interesting topic. We have interesting people in this room. So then I did a little research on each and every person in this room. It's amazing what you can actually find out. Our first speaker is an anthropologist and has spent the last several years living in Ireland with the tribe of leprechauns. Now, we all know about these little guys, right? Rainbows, pots of gold, but I'm sure there's some interesting stories and some things that we don't know. Martha, would you like to get up and tell us about your experience?
Well, since I'm the general evaluator.
Oh, did I miss that?
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
I think someone else should have that opportunity.
No, you're right. Clearly I got it wrong.
Raise your hands.
Brett.
Leprechauns. Lived with them. Fascinating. You know, all you ever see are those commercials on TV with that little guy, that to me Lucky Charms. That is not a real leprechaun. That's society's idea of what they think a leprechaun should be. First off, I didn't meet a single leprechaun that actually likes the color green. They hate it. They're sick of it. I think this whole big idea of what a leprechaun is has made them really kind of start to detest that color. And as they evolved through the ages, it's just gotten worse and worse and worse. Hate those things. They hate the color green. None of them wear those little funky hats. And I actually met a leprechaun. One of them was 6'6". So they're not all that tall. He was kind of an anomaly, I'll admit that, because most of them were about that tall, but he was the star of their basketball team, obviously. It was an absolutely fascinating time. You ever get a chance to go spend time in Ireland, you gotta seek out that little leprechaun town. Get to know a few of them, because they're very generous people. And I will tell you the one thing they do have that is part of the stereotype. They got gold. And they got a lot of it.
Thank you very much, Brett. You know, I think it was Thomas Edison that said, genius is 1% inspiration and 99%